Hello everyone, I'm Sue Levitt, your host for the Flood Channel. Thanks for joining us for another episode. Well, we are standing at the site of the latest detention basin to be completed in the valley, the Silverado Ranch Detention Basin. Coming up on this show, we'll show you how this massive basin will protect people and property in the area from flooding during a storm event. This basin and others around the valley collect and store runoff from upstream areas, then safely release it downstream. A little later in the show, we'll explain how the district monitors water flow into the basins during storm events. But first, this year's wet winter in the Colorado River Basin has improved our drought conditions immensely. Ski resorts across the country are pushing their closing dates into late spring and even summer because of large amounts of snowfall. And thanks to the many storms that have swept across the western United States, this winter, less than 1/4 of our state remains in drought. The wet winter has brought good news for Nevada. For more than 2 years, the entire state of Nevada has been classified as experiencing some level of drought, ranging from moderate to exceptional. The trend finally broke in February, and conditions have only improved since.
As far as drought goes, leaning into the winter, Nevada was about half covered with exceptional to extreme drought, and as we stand here in May, there is 0% of Nevada that has exceptional to extreme drought.
According to the U.S. Drought Monitor, the area around Las Vegas stands as the only remaining spot of severe drought. Other parts of the state are experiencing their wettest October through February since the 1890s. Climatologists report the Sierra Nevada and Great Basin had 1.5 to nearly 3 times as much snow compared to an average February.
So as a whole, the Colorado Basin has done quite well this winter season. We're going to see a surplus of water in the reservoirs, which is good. It should take some pressure off of water managers, at least this year. But as a whole, the whole system in this multi-decadal drought is still well below normal in water storage.
The Bureau of Reclamation tracks water levels at Lake Mead. When looking at past data, the levels have been steadily going down every year since 2018. Between February 2022 and February 2023, it was a difference of almost 20 feet.
This has been building over a 23-year period with below normal precipitation. So like I said, this year, everybody can feel a little bit better about the surplus, but as a whole, the entire system is still quite low in its storage. So everybody, like I said, needs to do their part in conserving water.
The 1,450-mile Colorado River, which feeds into Lake Mead, the primary source for drinking water for Las Vegas residents, serves 40 million people in 7 U.S. states. The 7 states that depend on the Colorado River announced in May that they have reached an agreement on cutting water use from the river over the next 3 years to prevent reservoirs from falling to critical levels. Representatives of the states reached the consensus after months of negotiations with California, Arizona, and Nevada, together committed to reduce water use by 3 million acre-feet between now and the end of 2026, an average of 1 million acre-feet per year, cutting usage by about 14% across the Southwest. Although the wet winter has brought some relief, with states agreeing to major water usage cuts, we can expect residents will continue to be asked to conserve water. Clark County is one of the driest climates in the country, but we also experience very active monsoon seasons with large amounts of rain falling in a short period of time. The area here surrounding the new Silverado Detention Basin has frequently experienced flooding during rain events, but thanks to the new basin and collection system, flooded roads in the area will be much less likely to occur in the future. The county's flood control system is growing with another massive detention basin complete in the southwest area of the valley.
It was just amazing to see the first time when I came out here, nothing, all the way out to east of Arville Street, but now it's like, wow, so many homes, and this detention basin will help that and reduce the impact to the adjacent properties.
The newly finished detention basin near Silverado Ranch Boulevard and Decatur Boulevard is crucial to the valley's flood control system. The basin will collect and hold rainwater runoff, diverting the water away from homes and streets, something this fast-growing area of town needs badly.
Very minimal. We'll see any street flooding from moving forward because most of the facilities that out here has been built.
This area experienced significant flooding recently after a couple of summer monsoon rains in 2022. Storms caused the closure of major street intersections in the area and also caused flooding on roadways in partially developed neighborhoods. Now, with the new 294 acre-foot basin in place, water will be diverted underneath Decatur and into the detention basin, keeping the area safe and clear.
As you can see, there's a lot of development going on as well. So that's also the great thing about having to build these facilities.
Construction for the Silverado Ranch Detention Basin and Outfall Facilities project began August of 2021. The project was completed January 2023. The Flood Control District has completed approximately 75% of the master plan, with $2.2 billion in work funded since 1986. The Silverado Ranch Detention Basin and other basins throughout the valley not only collect storm water, but also trash, debris, and sediment. This stormwater travels through the flood control network to Lake Mead, where it's pumped back into the valley, treated, and returned to our sinks for drinking water. This is why it's so important we all do our part to keep trash and other debris out of our water supply. Have you ever watched water flowing during a storm and wondered, where does all the water go? When it rains in your neighborhood, the water, often called runoff or stormwater, drains from the rooftops and driveways into the streets. As stormwater moves across the ground, it picks up pollutants such as sediment, oil and gasoline, lawn fertilizers and pesticides, pet waste, and litter. This water usually makes it into the storm drains, flood channels, and into detention basins. This is where the water filtering process first begins.
These berms function to stop those pollutants from reaching the water, and it helps filter out the water in those water quality storms.
Flood control basins normally function to collect debris and sediment that flow into the basins during storm events. By providing smaller berms at the outlet of the detention basins, more pollutants can be trapped in the basins during smaller, more frequent rain events. When the water recedes, maintenance crews will remove sediment and other pollutants and dispose of them properly.
The water enters the detention basin and it picks up as it travels across the deserts and through streets and gutters and channels. It picks up pollutants, sediment, oils, greases, trash, and debris. And when it flows into the detention basin, under a normal detention basin without this, all that sediment and debris and pollutants would travel right through the detention basin.
Once the water leaves the detention basin, it flows through the drainage system to the Las Vegas Wash. Trapping and removing trash and other pollutants before the water enters the wash is an important first step in the water filtering process. The lower Las Vegas Wash is a modified natural channel that connects the Las Vegas Valley with Lake Mead, our community's primary source of drinking water. The wash carries more than 200 million gallons of water per day, fed by reclaimed water, urban runoff, shallow groundwater, and stormwater to Lake Mead. Since our drinking water is recycled from Lake Mead, we all have a responsibility to do our part in keeping pollutants from entering the lake.
What's important to know is that even though we have these regional detention basins, it's important that everyday residents address water quality through their own activities. So they can do things like wash cars in designated car washes instead of washing them on their driveways, because your cars, as you drive them, pick up pollutants, create pollutants, and if you wash that in your driveway, that ends up in the storm drain system and ultimately goes untreated into Lake Mead. Many residents still don't realize that stormwater in the Las Vegas Valley, it all ends up untreated in Lake Mead. It doesn't go through any kind of formal treatment plant. And so we have to do everything we can. Another thing that residents can do is pet waste. Make sure that you're picking up your pet waste when you're walking your dog so that doesn't end up in the storm drain. litter and debris from yard work.
As the environmental mitigation manager for the flood control district, it's John Tennert's responsibility to make sure all contractors that begin work in Clark County are educated and understand best practices for reducing the amount of pollution and sediment leaving construction sites during rain events.
It's really important because everybody that works on a construction site has a responsibility to maintain water quality and address best management practices and make sure their BMPs are working properly and that sediment and pollutants aren't leaving the construction site. Every little bit helps and makes a big difference, especially in the Las Vegas Valley.
John provides training on stormwater quality best management practices to about 250 contractors annually. Many construction companies use these classes to improve their work sites and to satisfy training activities required by the Environmental Protection Agency and the state of Nevada. Well, we need to take a short break, but before we go, do you know how much water this detention basin is capable of holding? We'll have the answer when we return.
Let's go, come on! Don't you do it. It's just a little water in the road. The light is green, there's places to go. It's just a little water in the road. The flash flood grows, how deep, who knows? The other cars made it. Watch and learn, let me show you how it goes. Loco!
Ooh la la!
Yep.
Welcome back. Well, before the break, we asked if you knew about how much water the basin here at the Silverado Ranch is capable of holding. Well, the answer is 294 acre-feet, or the equivalent of a container the size of a football field, nearly 300 feet high. Well, monsoon season is right around the corner. We see most storm activity throughout Clark County in July through September. Although we are not sure whether this monsoon season will be as active as last year, it's always a good time to be reminded rain falls quickly in Clark County, causing flash flooding that should be taken seriously. Last monsoon season delivered some of the heaviest rainfall in 10 years. Las Vegas captured national attention as rainwater poured through the ceilings of casinos, and rushing water turned a parking garage into a fast-moving river. Video was shared over social media showing dramatic footage of people being rescued from floodwaters. On September 14, 2022, raging floodwaters hit the northeastern part of Clark County, trapping 2 people in their vehicle in the Overton area. Metropolitan Police caught their dramatic rescue on camera. The couple were traveling in their van when they decided to pull off the highway to get some rest. But very shortly after they decided to rest, torrential rain sent floodwaters in their direction. The couple described the ordeal as terrifying. Within 5 minutes, water was up to the door handles, and within another couple of minutes, water was up to the steering wheel. The couple waited for almost 2 hours as cold water rushed through their vehicle before a Metro search and rescue helicopter could safely remove them from danger. The couple was safely hoisted out of their van just as the water reached their chest level. They were both happy and grateful to be alive and safe. We're happy the couple made it out of their vehicle safely and want to remind you never to try to drive through flooded streets or roadways. Just 6 inches of water is enough to cause you to lose control of your vehicle or sweep you off your feet. 1 foot of water can float most cars, and 2 feet can cause large vehicles such as trucks or SUVs to float. Well, each detention basin site is equipped with special gauges that carefully measure rainfall during storm events. The monitoring equipment is placed inside structures like the one here at the Silverado Detention Basin to help keep the equipment safe and protected from vandalism.
Well, this is our bubbler site at Vandenberg North. What is a bubbler, you might ask? Well, it's a device that monitors water level inside the basin. Not only does it monitor the water level, this radio transmitter will also collect data from a tipping bucket.
Craig McDougall is the senior hydrologist for the Clark County Regional Flood Control District. He is demonstrating how the district monitors rainfall that collects in detention basins during a storm event.
This is the input for the tipping bucket. and this is the input for the bubbler device. This is connected to the solar panel on the roof, and this is the connector for the antenna so we can broadcast data when necessary, and this is a GPS cable, so the system has very accurate GPS time.
Each detention basin site is equipped with a bubbler gauge system designed to collect water level data during storm events and transmit the information to a computer server at district headquarters. The system is designed to send alarms to staff when the water level rises quickly. During summer 2022, when Las Vegas experienced a monsoon season that delivered some of the heaviest rainfall in 10 years, the system in place was crucial in gathering real-time rainfall and runoff information, allowing staff to deliver important safety messages to Clark County residents and businesses.
The basins are large. They are designed to impound water for a theoretical 100-year return interval storm. And we don't get those very often in the city to date. That doesn't mean it's not going to happen. If we experience a 200-year return interval storm or greater, then the possibility of a detention basin being overtopped does exist. But that also emphasizes why it is so important to have the monitoring stations here, because we can watch the basins rise, and if the basin is reporting a depth equivalent to 25% of the capacity, we'll see that and we'll make a note of it. We'll start notifying first responders.
During a storm event, the Clark County Regional Flood Control District pays careful attention to the amount of water that flows into any of the 104 detention basins throughout the county. If a significant amount of rain is falling, alarms are triggered, sending alerts to district staff and the National Weather Service.
This newer technology is great because everything is synced via GPS. Every site within 1 minute has a quarter-second interval to transmit.
Rain gauge information is generated quickly. This is important because many storm events in southern Nevada occur suddenly. A beautiful sunny day in the Las Vegas Valley can quickly change to dark and cloudy with large amounts of rainfall coming down. Since these types of storms can cause dangerous flash flooding, it's crucial residents receive timely information on areas to avoid and stay safe.
If we want to make sure that the line is going to be intact and serviceable during a flash flood event.
Craig and his team regularly test and inspect all of the gauges and equipment placed throughout the county to be sure valuable information on water levels, rainfall, and other meteorologic parameters is received timely by residents.
The engineers build facilities to help control the flow away from structures, buildings, to help protect property and lives. And at the same time, we monitor the heavy rainfall so that when flash flood advisory or warning is required, we can also get the word out.
In 1987, the Clark County Regional Flood Control District began implementing a network of strategically located field stations that automatically collect and report real-time meteorological data called the Flood Threat Recognition System, or FTRS. This network now includes nearly 350 sensors throughout the Clark County area. The district's website shows actual data in real time as it's reported by each gauge. If you want to view the data or learn more about current or historical meteorological events in Clark County, you can visit the website at regionalflood.org. Well, engineering students from UNLV recently had the opportunity to team up with district engineers to see how the many sensors placed throughout Clark County function and to help develop a plan to protect this important equipment. UNLV engineering students are teaming up with the Clark County Regional Flood Control District to use their in-class knowledge to receive some real-world field experience. Jessica Labanino is one of several UNLV students working to complete her senior design project. The students have been tasked with designing a new monitoring station for the Clark County Regional Flood Control District. Today, the students are getting up close to see just what the stations look like and how they function. Monitoring stations measure and report water levels, rainfall amounts, and other meteorologic parameters in real time.
It's really interesting. I never knew these sorts of shelters all over the valley and that they collected this sort of data.
Monitoring stations are built near every flood control detention basin across the valley. The equipment inside the stations collect data and measure how much water the basin is holding. The information gathered is sent to the flood control district and used to identify storm locations and determine areas of possible flooding.
People take it for granted, but all the drainage considerations, we'd have flooded streets all the time if there weren't people behind the scenes taking care of all that. But we never think about it.
But today, these students are thinking about the importance of monitoring stations that provide crucial information to the public about water levels and water flow rates.
A lot of people think flood is not the biggest issue until it rains, but so we want to show them what we're doing actively to protect the public and showing the instrumentation for advance warning and all that.
The Flood Control District has an intricate system of flood channels and detention basins that weave throughout the valley. Basins collect rainwater runoff during storms and safely divert the water in the drainage system away from homes and businesses. Knowing how much water is accumulating in our flood control facilities helps the public identify areas that may be unsafe to travel during a rain event. This information also helps public works departments and first responders monitor where the drainage system is being overwhelmed by stormwater and runoff. Therefore, it is vitally important to protect the equipment used to collect and monitor rainfall and runoff data.
The students are interested in working on a project to improve the resistance of the instrument shelters to vandalism and other kinds of attack.
The Flood Control District partners with UNLV students every year. This partnership gives the students the opportunity to get up close, hands-on experience they don't get in a classroom, and hopefully help spark interest in these young engineers to join the Clark County Regional Flood Control District team in implementing drainage systems to keep communities safe from the impacts of flooding. Well, we need to take a short break, but before we go, can you guess about how many more detention basins and miles of flood channels and storm drains the Flood Control District plans to construct in the next 30 years? We'll have the answer when we return. Welcome back. Before the break, we asked if you could guess about how many detention basins and miles of flood channels will be constructed throughout Clark County in the next 30 years. Well, the answer is 37 more detention basins and 202 miles of channels and underground storm drains. Well, currently the district's master plan is more than 75% complete with 106 detention basins and 684 miles of channels and underground storm drains constructed. All of the progress on the Flood Control District and construction of facilities would not be possible without the hard work and dedication from district engineers. In our Employee Spotlight segment of this show, we feature one of our principal engineers who recently had the chance to show off some of his work to his children.
It's cooler than I expected it to be, so, and I think we're going to walk over to the pipe.
Noelle Rowley and her two younger siblings are taking a day off from school today to join their dad for Take Your Child to Work Day. They're getting up close and seeing firsthand what their dad does for work.
If you ask my kids what I do for work, I think my youngest daughter once said that my job was to keep your carpet dry when it rains. And I like that. I thought that was a pretty good answer, but I think they think when it rains, my job is to make sure that water gets out of the way.
To make sure the city doesn't get flooded and then we'll have to abandon it.
Brian Rowley is a principal engineer for the Clark County Regional Flood Control District. Brian is overseeing a major project underway here on Charleston Boulevard. His kids watch as segments of the storm drain are lowered into the ground.
If my kids go into engineering, they certainly have gotten a lot of background from me talking about culverts when we're driving. I don't think a lot of kids are too excited about concrete pipes underground, but it's been a fun thing to share my work with them, and if they're so inclined, I would love to see some of them end up in engineering.
Brian has worked as an engineer for the Flood Control District for 6 years. He loves his job and enjoys the small but effective staff of about 25 people who all work closely to plan projects and provide solutions to flooding problems in Clark County.
I think civil engineering in general is a profession that I remember seeing in college on the wall. It said, a people-serving profession. And so a lot of the work we do goes into making our community safer, building the infrastructure. In our case, it's all about protecting people from flooding.
Today, Brian shows his kids exactly what he does to protect Clark County from flooding. His kids get to stand in these huge reinforced concrete boxes that are 18 feet wide and 8 feet tall. The boxes are put together piece by piece and placed underground to create a storm drain system that will help water flow safely through our community. And of course, it's always fun to sit inside a real tractor.
Ask myself, should I be an engineer today? Should I, become an engineer when I grow up? That's what I think.
It's fun to solve problems, it's fun to get in there and design things, but really the end product is making people safer. And so there's a rewarding aspect to that, feeling like you're making the world a better place, I guess, and it's satisfying.
Brian is one of 7 district engineers who work directly with Chief Engineer and General Manager Steve Parrish to develop and maintain master plans for flood control facilities throughout Clark County. And in this update from the district's General Manager Steve Parrish, we get an update on a crucial project underway along East Charleston Boulevard.
Hello, thanks for watching this episode of the Flood Channel. My name is Stephen Parrish. I'm the General Manager and Chief Engineer of the Clark County Regional Flood Control District. I wanted to take a few minutes and talk to you about a few things going on at the Flood Control District. First, I wanted to talk about a storm drain that we're building in Charleston. This storm drain starts at Maryland Parkway and is going to be built in Charleston all the way down to Boulder Highway. There's also a facility that will run north in Maryland Parkway from Charleston, about 3/4 of a mile. This storm drain is designed to capture all the rainfall that lands within the downtown area, the Arts District, and the areas, the avenues areas that, the courthouse and other downtown facilities or buildings. And it'll pick up all that water and it will convey it down Charleston and tie it into an existing storm drain we have in Boulder Highway. This is a phase 3 of a multiple phase project. So we've already built 2 phases in Boulder Highway to get a structure from Flamingo Wash all the way up to Charleston, and now we're running a facility up Charleston to the west to Maryland Parkway. Eventually there'll be another phase that will extend it from Maryland Parkway up to Main Street. This facility is a much needed structure in this area. There's lots of water that runs down Charleston, as people that live and work down there know. So we're planning on picking as much of that water up as we can into this structure. But because this road is so old, it's an old roadway. It was built 50 years ago, 60 years ago. There's old utilities in it. There's businesses that line each side of the roadway. There's lots of traffic. So this just really makes the construction that much more difficult when we have all these obstacles that we have to deal with. We got to make sure the traveling public can get through the work zone, and we also have to make sure that people can get to the businesses that line the roadway. Because of that, it takes longer to build these facilities. This is a big box culvert that will be built right down the middle of Charleston, and so that adds to the complexity of these structures. It started construction in October of 2021. We anticipate the construction will be complete in December of this year, 2023. And we're hopeful that once all that is done, that we'll see a much improved area when it comes to flooding along Charleston and in the downtown area.
We'd like to thank you for joining us for this episode of the Flood Channel. If you would like updates on the efforts of the Clark County Regional Flood Control District, you can visit the website at regionalflood.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. We'll see you next time.